Well, I want to welcome you to our program today. We have a very special guest with us. Her name is Kroll. She's from Platteville, Wisconsin, and a member of the Lutheran Church of Peace in Platteville. And so, Carolyn, I just want to thank you so much for being on the program today. And one of the things what we're going to be discussing today is a Christian in society. You know, so oftentimes when we think about living the Christian life, just how do we do that? Jesus Christ has given us life, and the Holy Spirit has been poured into our lives. And so we sometimes think, well, to be a Christian means, well, we go to church, and that's where we live out our Christian life. But it's more than that. It's more than just, going to church is very important, and studying and worshiping, but it's also living out our lives as Christians in society, in the world that we serve. And I want to say that Carolyn is a person who certainly does that. But, and I've known Carolyn now for a number of years. She's a member of the church that I serve in Platteville, and she is a very good worker in the church, and we're very, very happy to have her as a member and appreciate all the good work that she does. And so, Carolyn, what are some of the areas of church, as far as involvement? What are some of the areas that you like to serve at the church?
The one I serve the most would be education. I've taught Sunday school for probably 12 years. I help with the youth group. Early on, I was in the choir. I've done a lot of different things. I've been on church council now twice. I think I would say I enjoy the education aspect. I have 2 children that have both gone through the program, so that's where I have spent the majority of my time.
She has had quite an influence on a lot of the young people in our church. It's always something that when they graduate and when they ask, the graduates, what are some of the things that they have enjoyed and who are some of the people that have influenced your faith, Carolyn's name is one that so oftentimes gets mentioned, and also a lot of the things that she has promoted in our church and worked hard on, such as helping with mission trips and things like that, that the youth also have had a great appreciation for that as well. One of the stories that I want to read at this time, it comes from Luke chapter 10, beginning with the 25th verse, and this is a story of the Good Samaritan. It's a story that, well, it's familiar. A lot of people know this story, but yet it's always good to hear this story. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, who when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Carolyn, I don't know if you remember this, but a number of years ago at our church, we were doing a World Hunger Appeal, and that last phrase, "go and do likewise," was the phrase, "go and do likewise." And so I just remember how hard you worked on that appeal, but that seems like something that you do so oftentimes in your life, is that you go and do likewise. And so, I see how you've helped like with World Hunger Appeals at the church, and how you've helped with the education and also with the youth. But also you are a person who gives so much of yourself. You look outside of yourself, and you're constantly not just serving at the church, but also in the community. And so what are some of the areas in community that you have involved yourself in?
I would say I follow my kids a little bit, and you get involved in things that they're interested in. I've served on, for many years, I believe 4 years, on our local Sports Boosters program. Treasurer, a lot of fundraising activities. I was also active in a soccer club. Again, both my boys play soccer, and helped in organizing that. At our church hosts the Toys for Tots drive. I've been involved in that for many years. Adopt a Family. I would go to the schools and help read, do some extra reading programs with kids, and again, I think most everything I do tends to follow where my kids are at this point. So,
Are you serving on any community boards at this point?
I am on a sewer and water commission for the city of Platteville, and right now that's the only active board I'm on.
Yeah, because if I remember right now, you've got a degree in, is it engineering?
Yes, civil engineering.
Yeah, civil engineering. And where did you get your degree at?
I actually graduated from South Dakota State University in Brookings, South Dakota. What year was that? 93.
Okay, 1993. And so it's been oftentimes very nice to have Carolyn on various committees and boards when it comes to the church buildings and grounds, because with her engineering background, she's been a wealth of information for us. And she's very creative and good thinker and good ideas and problem solver as well. But one of the things I should mention is that Carolyn and her husband Bruce own the Culver's restaurant in Platteville. And here again, through their work, they do serve the community very faithfully and have been a real bright spot. This restaurant is a very popular establishment in Platteville. And it was on November 13th of 2013 of last year. And I still remember what a shock it was when I heard the news on that morning that the Culver's restaurant burned down. And so right away, my heart just sank, and I felt so bad for you and Bruce and having your business burned down. I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, here are people who are serving the Lord faithfully and serving our community, and are people who are doing so much for others, and then all of a sudden this.
Right.
Yeah, the restaurant, your business, your livelihood burns down.
Right.
I mean, I just remember, kind of the buzz going throughout the community that morning, and how everybody was, well, in a bit of a state of shock.
Right.
We were all feeling, just like, wow, how could that happen? We were feeling sad, wondering, well, what's going to be the future?
Right,
How is
right.
Carolyn and Bruce doing? So that's how we were all feeling. But I can't imagine, what was going through your mind. I mean, what
Good question.
that morning, what happened there? I mean, when you heard about it, how did you hear about this?
Well, I was actually home. My husband was gone that week. He was deer hunting. He was in Southern Illinois, actually. And as the story plays out, my phone rang at about 4:15 that morning, and we have an alarm system. And we also have the Culvers in Dubuque, so the person told me an alarm had gone off at the store. I wasn't clear if it was Platteville or Dubuque, and the conversation just ended. basically, since Bruce was not home, she wouldn't tell me any more information. Within minutes, I could hear first responder sirens. Again, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and so you get a little more nervous, thinking, no, this is just a coincidence. And eventually, on my cell phone, I have a scanner app, and I happened to turn that on because I'm thinking potentially this could be a problem. And as I'm listening to the conversations to the police officers or first responders and fire, I realize they're in a restaurant. So I'm putting all this information together, and I decided I need to go check this out. And as I approach it, Platteville's not a large town, and as you approach the main intersection, the fast food restaurants are all off that area. And sure enough, I can see the smoke, and the roads are blocked. And so I can honestly say physically I was panicking at that point. I know I was shaking. I was trying to figure out what do I do? Who do I call? My husband is gone. We own the business with my parents. They also live in Platteville. So my first call was to my father. Of course, I woke them up. And I told him, I need you down at the store. And I woke him up in a hurry, I would say, because as soon as I said, yeah, it's on fire, then he responded very quickly too. I think my first reaction is just, how bad is this? Is this just, a minor thing and we'll be closed for a week and we'll be okay? Of course, shortly thereafter, I met with the fire chief and knew that it was bad. I believe his comment was the ceiling had collapsed internally. And so you knew now, how am I going to call my husband and tell him what had happened? Again, he was deer hunting, and in the age of technology, I was texting him, please call me as soon as you get this message, and no response, and please call me, and this is an emergency, I need you to contact me. And so that was a tough conversation to have, because I'm still, I didn't think I was in shock per se, but I think you are to a certain degree. Like, this is real, but you feel like you're just observing it or going through the motions, I guess. Like, you don't necessarily know how to deal with it. You just deal with it. You can't think it through. You just deal with it. And we were there most of the morning. I believe it was around noon that the fire was officially put out. And my husband had gotten a hold of me and was on his way home. But it is a helpless feeling. In the next breath, I can say, like, there was a huge number of our employees were there. And we're talking, a lot of college-age students and younger 20-year-olds. And they really were a comfort for me, because I'm thinking, these people are thinking, we're done, we don't have a job. I have to start looking for a job. And instead of, I guess, feeling sorry for themselves, they were basically there. Mm-hmm. And I would say, not necessarily for me, but it was very supportive for me. So that was a long morning.
So in that morning, you were experiencing,
mm-hmm.
shock,
mm-hmm.
numbness. And really what this is all part of is like a grief process.
Sure.
This is not a person, but it's your business. I mean, this is a big part of, it's your livelihood. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing it all go up in flames in that moment. And you're kind of in shock. But then you say the other employees then came, and you felt that they were a source of comfort for mm-hmm. you at that time. Mm-hmm. Their presence, meant an awful lot. And so that's the whole thing, though, when you have a business. We think of Carolyn and Bruce, but it's so many more people. It's so many more people, mm-hmm. and that's the thing, that when you look at a business, it's not just Carolyn and Bruce, mm-hmm. but how many people are connected with that place, mm-hmm. that it's the livelihood of so many people.
And I think you have that misconception with fast food restaurants. We had talked earlier about this. A lot of people think, it's a bunch of teenagers, working for gas money. And we have a lot of people that are full-time employees with health insurance, and they, this is their livelihood. And those were the people you were thinking, what are we going to be able to do for them? How are they going to get through this? Is this going to be 3 months, or is this going to be, a year and a half? At that point, we had no idea what the process would be.
Yeah, and so when I think about you and Bruce, it'd be just easy at that moment, and I guess understandably, just to be kind of looking in the mirror and kind of self-absorbed, thinking, how are we going to survive? But it's typical of you and Bruce to be looking outside of yourselves, to be seeing, okay, that's even got to put more weight on your shoulders, I would think. It's just like, well, it's one thing about how are we going to go forward, but how are we going to go forward with all of these people now who are out of work?
Right. And I had said, too, a lot of our employees have worked for us for many years, and it's its own family. I mean, my husband works there every day, and so he has a closer connection than I do with these people, but we've known many of them for so long, and so you know their situations and the good and the bad, and you just really hope that things would fall into place for them. We were very fortunate, too, with our community. I was going to mention, in the age of social media, within hours, probably within an hour, I had messages from a lot of my church family and friends. And so even in a small town, I think we are fortunate with the tightness, close-knit community. And I give my church family credit because lots of concern, lots of help.
Yeah, there definitely was. And so, okay, so and I remember once, Carolyn, as I was visiting with you during this time, that you did say, we're thankful that nobody was hurt.
Right.
That nobody was killed. I mean, as devastating as this was, to have, your restaurant burned down. But it seems like you were really trying to get a perspective on this whole thing, to say, well, how awful it would be if somebody had been in there. Or,
right.
Or
Definitely.
customers or things.
Definitely. As devastating as this was, it gave me a perspective of it being a business and a building, and there wasn't anything in that building that we couldn't replace. Or, I started thinking, you get a little, I don't want to say paranoid, but you are a little more panicky. I started thinking, what would I do if this had been my home? And the things, even if nobody had been hurt, the things that are so important to you in your house that you couldn't replace. And that, again, I think if we had to have a tragedy like this, I don't want to say I was thankful it was the business, but it's a different perspective. Our biggest concern when it first happened was the employees and what we were going to do. We even had a friend of ours hold a fundraiser, a soup supper, and they raised money for us to give to our employees because we were approaching Christmas and we knew some people were worried about, obviously, how they were going to get through the holidays. And so we were so thankful with the thoughts and help that we received that we could then pass on to our employees.
Yeah,
too.
so concern for the employees. I mean, when you get over the initial shock, when the reality starts setting in, you begin to accept this whole thing and you're dealing with your emotions. But then, and you are a very good thinker, and as your husband is, to be able to kind of strategize and to kind of map yourself, your way through this whole thing. But there's got to be a lot of things, there's got to be the headache things of, okay, now you got to be dealing with insurance company. I mean, there's got to be, quite a list of all of the things that you have to do in this moment. And then I would almost think, well, a month down the road, in 2 months. I mean, it's not like they can just rebuild it overnight.
Right. And definitely a lot of hurdles or obstacles, how you would like to word that. We got through the insurance portion, and then to rebuild was, again, more hurdles. It's a new structure. We weren't grandfathered anymore. You have to meet building regulations and codes, which you understand and you accept, but it would always be one more thing to look into or it needed to be changed. And so it was a learning process,
Yeah.
quite a learning process.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, and this is where we all are touched, because Bruce and Carolyn are private people from the standpoint that Carolyn and Bruce do an awful lot for people that most people aren't even aware of all of what they do for the church, for the community, for people, for their workers, and so they're private when it comes to a lot of these things. And matter of fact, I'm just happy that Carolyn would come on the program because I know that it's not like she ever wants to draw attention to herself, and that's not why she's even on, because this is not what she is doing, because she does glorify the Lord in her life, and she does express her Christianity in word and even more so in deed. And so nobody knew about this because she had mentioned about the insurance company, and that insurance would be paying the employees, but only for a short time. Now here again, the business was, how long was the business down for?
It was November and we opened in June, so about 8 months.
Mm-hmm. 8 months. And so insurance would pay the employees for how long were they able to?
I want to say for 2 months. 2 months.
2 months. Mm-hmm. And so, and here again, this just leaked out. They didn't want anybody to know, but it did leak out. And so when it leaked out, we were also touched because what they did is that they continued to pay their employees. Now, talking about what Jesus says, go and do likewise. It just, it's really, when I first heard that, I was so touched and so moved by that. That here you were paying these employees all of this time because that's how much you care about them.
Sure.
And so I think about the whole, weight upon your shoulders as far as, having your business burn and all of the things that have to happen in order to get the business rebuilt, and there's lots behind the scenes, and you think that would have consumed every ounce of your energy, but yet during this awful time, you're able to look outside of yourselves to the needs and the concerns of others.
And I would say for my husband, there wasn't a hesitation. I feel he knew that was what he had to do. And my thought was, if we could do this and we chose not to, how wrong that would be. If you could do it, and we were fortunate we could. And again, they're your family, essentially, and you want the best for them. My husband did struggle with the information being made public, and that, again, that's who he is. But what we have noticed, I guess, as time has gone on, how hungry everybody is for good news, because people will talk to us all the time about it, and there's so much out there that is negative, and so I think people really latched on to that and wanting good news.
Yeah, and this did make the Wisconsin news. That's how I found out. I was watching a news station out of Madison, Wisconsin, and I really debated that night. As I sat down, do I even want to watch the news? Because I'm just getting so sick of hearing all the bad news. It just puts me in a bad attitude, and I got to know what's going on in the world, but after a while, it wears you down. And so as I sat down, I turned on the news, and the first news story was Culver's in Platteville reopening, and as they were doing this, then they mentioned they had Bruce on, and they had mentioned that they had paid their employees all along, and I just thought, this has got to be, for me, the news story of the year. I mean, I was just so happy to hear this. It just really, like I said, it moved me, and it made me just have this real sense that there are good things happening in the world today, and that there are people who, in love, are reaching out and they are caring for others. And so, you know, to you and Bruce, and then also you mentioned about your parents, that just really want to thank you for that, and how thankful we are to God for you. And so I should mention your parents being Dick and Judy Adams. Okay, so Culver's is back open. I've been there, and it's very nice. And so I look at how, you know, you go through tragedy, and now you look at how nice your new store has turned out. That, you know, I think for people to know that good things can come out of tragedies.
Right. Oh, definitely.
And
definitely.
in some cases, things are even better after as a result.
Right,
I mean, it's
right.
no fun going through these
No.
times. But I'd have to say that, you know, that store is so nice, and I would also, you know, have to say that, you know, just, you know, how this has strengthened our whole community, the
think so.
example that you and your husband have shown, you know, during this time, that, you know, go and do likewise.
Sure. Yeah, we've had tremendous community support, and again, if you would have told me a year ago where we would be now, I would not believe it. So we have been, on all sides of things, I still say we're very fortunate. I mean, things were rough there, but we get through it, and you be thankful we are where we are.
The strength that God gives us during times of adversity. And so, yes, we hear about a lot of terrible things going on, but this certainly is one of those bright points, and I just can't thank you enough for letting the light of Jesus shine during a very difficult time, being an example to all of us. And so that's what we would encourage all of you to do as well, is to go out and do likewise. Do something good for somebody this day. Well, Carolyn, thanks so much for being our guest today, and I want to thank all of you for watching as well.